Hi sweet friends, it's Tracy. Welcome to today's video. I'm sharing more fall DIYs with you in this collection video. If you're new here, my name is Tracy. I love to share crafty ideas with a bit of rustic country charm. I hope that you would consider subscribing to my channel before you leave today's video. All right guys, let's go ahead and get started and let me share what I have for you. Okay guys, first project is using one of these trucks from the Dollar Tree. Now I'm using an older version, but I'm sharing these right here that the Dollar Tree seems to have revamped their stuff, but they're super cute and they're the same size. One of these harvest trucks from the Dollar Tree, and I want to get off as much of the lettering and the raised glitter as I could. So I just used my sanding sponge and some elbow grease and just rubbed and rubbed and rubbed until I got the majority of it off. And then I'm going to give it 2 coats of this plaster color chalk paint. And then now it's ready for me to embellish it more. I'm just using this granite gray paint, and I'm just kind of freehanding, just shaping out a window, which is going to be the back glass, and I gave that 2 coats of the granite gray paint. I also paint on the sides, which would be the rear view mirrors, and then I go back over it with this metallics silver paint, and I just give it a little bit on the sides and just kind of highlight it a little bit so it has a glare. I painted the wheels black, and then I'm going to use my milk chocolate Americana paint, and I'm going to be shading around just to give it more dimension around everything, the whole truck. And so I dip half of my brush in paint, the other half in water, and I blend on a paper towel, and then I go around the edges of the painted project, and that just gives it dimension and depth and just cute. This is my fan brush, and I like to use this to put treads for my tires, and so I just use just a portion of the brush and just make sure it's not clumped up, and then I just kind of go in a zigzag pattern to give some treads on my tires. And then on the back glass, I'm just doing more whimsy effect. I'm just adding some lines, and they're not perfect. They just are, kind of crooked. Some of them, are a little bit longer than the others. And I just think it just really adds a lot to my finished project. To go back and add a bumper onto my truck. I'm just using the same granite gray paint and just doing the same thing that I did with the back glass by adding some gray paint and then adding some highlights of the metallic silver paint. So then now what I'm doing here is I am just shading around the letters that I hand painted with the black paint, and I'm just going around them just to bring some shadowing and some dimension for the little fall letters. It's all in the details for me, guys, and I just use my fine Sharpie marker and just go around the entire truck and kind of bringing out, the highlights of it. I think it enhances, different parts of it, and just makes it look really whimsy and cute. Then I'll do some splattering, and I just use my stiff stencil brush and a stick, and I just dip it in paint and splatter on the entire truck. And then I'll use a different stencil brush and I'll go back and do the white as well. That way it just looks really cute. Now the fun part begins, and I can decorate my truck. So I have these pumpkins from the Dollar Tree, and to get it started, I'm just going to start adding some Excelsior. Just going to hot glue a line along the bed of the truck, and then I will just start adding my pumpkins and some flowers and some pip berries and some little sunflowers. These orange pumpkins are a bit bright for me, so I just have my plaster chalk paint and I just dry brush some paint over the pumpkins just to take off, you know, a bit of the shiny brightness and subdue them a bit. I have these stems of wheat that I got from the Dollar Tree, and just pulling off parts of the wheat and gluing it on there as well. These wood beads are from Hobby Lobby, and they come in 9 in a pack. They didn't have a size on them, so I was unable to tell you what they are. But what I did is I wanted 8 beads for my truck hanger, and I just put 4 on each side. I just used jute to you know, thread them on and then secure them on my truck. So then now I'm going to make a bow, and my ribbons are cut at 6 inches, and I dovetailed the ends of them, and I'm just going to, you know, just make just a simple bow to attach to the top of the door hanger. First, I tied the bow with jute, but I couldn't get it tight enough, so I went back to my handy Chanel stem, and that helped me gather it in the center and get it really tight. And then I'll just attach it, just twist it on that string and have it look, you know, in the middle at the top, just to hang it for this truck door hanger. Today I'm sharing how I created this mason jar Hello Fall red truck, little hanging floral flower autumn thingy. Very country, very cool, totally my style. Now, I was so inspired when one of my members, Cindy, over in the Country Charm community shared her version of the mason jar floral hanger, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have one of those little mason jar so that I picked up from Dollar Tree, so I wanted to create one for myself. Have you ever had a project and you think, oh, this is not going to take me long at all, and then it takes you much longer than what you anticipated? Well, yeah, that is this project. So let me show you what I did to create this, and also what I did when my painting did not turn out the way that I pictured it, and what I did to fix it so that my project was not scrapped. Okay, here are some of the supplies I'm using. The mason jar is from Dollar Tree, as well as these flowers. I'm also adding 2 of these picks from the Walmart floral. To give my lid a bit more definition, I am just adding strips of hot glue to the lid. I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to go over it with this gray granite paint and let that dry. I'm going to give it 2 coats because that gives a pretty good coverage. And if you freak out by glitter, I'm going to forewarn you, but I am adding some of this sterling color Martha Stewart fine glitter. It is my favorite glitter. I am not bothered by any glitter, but I know that a lot of people are. And I just added that to the top of my lid to give it a little more, you know, pizzazz, and just dried that using my heat gun. Now I'm going to add some definition to the end of my, or the edges of my project, by adding just a bit of antiquing wax, and then I just go along the edges, and then I'm also adding a bit to the rim of the mason jar just to give it a more realistic look. Using my fine Sharpie marker, I just doodle around the edges because that's what I like to do for my projects, just to give them a little more character and definition. And I should have known when I was doodling up this, and some of the antiquing on the edges was kind of not dry yet. And I should have, you know, that should have been the first clue for me to say, okay, Tracy, you need to rethink this, only because the Dollar Tree signs are chipboard and it's printed paper that is an overlay on the boards, and so therefore it's not porous and it doesn't accept some of the products that we use. And so anyway, you know, I had mentioned at the beginning of the video that I, you know, had a little boo-boo, and I was going to show you how I fixed that. So that's what I'm kind of showing you here. I fully intended when I started this project was to, you know, have this Hello Fall, just kind of adding a bit of, you know, just shading and definition to it. And so then when I went to varnish and put a sealer on my project, that's when I messed up. Usually when I put black Sharpie marker and paint and shading on my projects, I have no problem. But this particular sign I did, and it's just because of the slick paper that the Dollar Tree signs have on top of them, that my Hello Fall kind of smeared. So this project is just taking me a little bit longer because I'm going to have to paint a sign and or scrap this project because, you know, I don't like it when that little Hello Fall was smeared. Anyway, so let me show you how I painted the sign and how I fixed my little mistake. Okay, I'm just painting a little sign here. I have a wood slat. I get these over in the unfinished wood section over there at the Walmart craft section. And just using my paintbrush, I'm just painting up my signs the way I like to do it, just giving it a border, giving it some background, and then I will take my smaller brush and paint Hello Fall. I'm a self-taught painter. I say that humbly. It is some God-given talent, and I want to give all the credit and glory to Him, because I have had many trials and errors of trying to figure out how to paint. And for years, guys, my husband and I did some craft shows, and I did actual personalization and did a lot of individual projects. So I was determined to figure out how to paint with a paintbrush. And so one of my things is to doodle up with little dots on the letters. That's what I like to do for my projects. I know that's not everybody's style, but you know, that's what I like. So I am just taking the end of my paintbrush and just giving it some little dots. And then I like to highlight my little edges. I love the country. This is just very country to me. And that's just my projects and what I like to do here on my channel. So I appreciate all of your sweet, kind support. And I just love it that there are so many of you country girls at heart still around. Anyway, so I'm just shading up my little sign here, and then I will finish it up and add it to my little project. Okay, I'm going to add a wire hanger to my mason jar before I put the flowers on. Now this wire is a thicker wire that I got at a local hardware store, and I like to use this thicker wire when I have projects like this that I want to hang signs on and stuff like that. And then to make those little curly cues, I just take a dowel, or you can take a pencil, the end of a paintbrush, something like that, and just twist it around, just giving it little curly cues. And then to attach the, get the little curls at the bottom, I just curl that, and then just the edge of the wire, I always take my needle nose pliers and flip the edges, turn them over so that they're not sharp and they won't cut me or someone else. Okay, I want to make my flowers look like they're coming out of the mason jar. So I have these flowers from the Dollar Tree, and then I'm going to add those 2 picks in from Walmart. And just trying to figure out how to get my flowers attached. Now, I'm not saying that this is the perfect way, but this is the best way that I knew how to do it. I just added those flowers on the back, and then I had some duct tape. It just happens to have these cute little candy corn on there. Anyway, so I just duct tape the flowers to the back, and then to cover it up, I just have some of this burlap that I've had in my stash for quite a while, and I said, well, you should use it. And it's just kind of a sheet of it, and I'm just hot gluing it to the back so that it looks like the little flowers are in a pocket. Okay, now I have this little hello that I need to cover up, so I just have some Spanish moss. Just going to hot glue that there to the front, and it just looks like it is all meant to be. And then now I'm going to work on my bow, and thank you for your very sweet comments on how most of you like the way that I make my bows. I appreciate that. The buffalo check I got at Hobby Lobby. The burlap is from the Dollar Tree, and the burlap with the red stripe is also from Hobby Lobby. And so what I'm doing here, I'm using my little tiny attacher, my little stapler, and that is helping me just by putting a small little staple in the center so that I can layer my bow, and then I'll use my pipe cleaner to help me, kind of twist it all together, and then I'll fluff it up because that is very important. So then now here I have added some raffia because a country mason jar project is not complete in my eyes without some raffia. Okay, here is all the supplies I used in this project. I know it looks like a lot of supplies. I'll just go through and kind of tell you what everything is and where I got it from when I get to that part. These 3 pumpkins are from the Dollar Tree. Now, I know that these on the stand are a little hard to find when it gets to a certain point in the season. So what I would suggest is you can use some foam board or some thicker cardboard, some Jenga blocks or the tumbling tower like this, like here, to make the stands. And then you can make your own little pumpkin because you're going to take all of this stuff off anyway. I'm just going to quickly share how I do my pumpkins. The reason that I speed this up is because I do not want my videos to be too long. And if I were to show every single step, my video would be an hour and a half long, and no one's going to watch it. So anyway, what I do is I just take my paper and I turn my little pumpkin over, trace it out. I've learned that if I put an X on like the left side, it helps me remember where my pumpkin should go or where my paper should go on my pumpkin. So that's been a great help. Now what I'm showing you here is I want to add some dimension to my pumpkin. So I am adding some hot glue. It's giving some lumps and bumps and some ridges. And so I am going to be doing that for each of the pumpkins so that when I Mod Podge the paper on the pumpkin and it dries, then I can go back over and distress it, and it's going to give me a great look. I'm just using my scraping tool and my little score to try to help get all the paper down. Now, I don't put a layer of Mod Podge on top of the paper until the bottom layer completely dries. That helps prevent the bubbles. So there's a little crafting tip for you. I'm just going to add some shading to my pumpkin to enhance the ridges, and I use my milk chocolate brown paint. And I just dip half of my brush in the paint, half in clean water, blend it on the little paper towel, and then I just go around the pumpkin. Next, once that's completely dry, then I take my 60 grit coarse sandpaper and I'm going around each of the pumpkins to distress it from that, from where the hot glue, I have it underneath that paper, and I love that little look. And so then now to give it even more dimension, I'm going to use some puffy paint and just give it some doodles and some squiggles. And this is what I like to do for my project. You don't need to use, this step or do this step, but I like to do this. I use the white on the small and the orange pumpkin, and then slick black on the large pumpkin. Using this fall block from the Dollar Tree, I just painted off-white over the gather, just the top of it. Then I'm going to add some lines using this antique white paint and my fan paintbrush. I will have my favorite paintbrushes linked below because I do get questions about those. You can get these brushes anywhere, or like fan brushes or paintbrushes, but these are just my personal preference. And then I'm using some black ceramic coat paint with my number 2 flat brush for my lettering. And, you know, it has taken me many years. I have had lots of trial and error of, you know, I was determined to learn how to paint, and it is, I have mentioned this in other videos, but I'm strongly, it is a God-given talent, and I have just tried over and over. It was my desire to learn how to paint with a paintbrush, and I owe all of the credit to God, because He has allowed me to, you know, learn how to do this without having to take an expensive painting class. But anyway, I have messed up many projects, and I just paint over it and then start again. And then now I am doing some happy dots. I had a viewer leave a comment and say those are happy dots. So that's what I'm going to be referring to them from now on. Yes, they make me so happy, and right up there with pip berries. Anyway, these little dots make me so happy, and it's just part of my country crafting, country creations. And so then now I'm just finishing up everything. I will let that dry. Then I will go back in and I will do some shading with my Americana milk chocolate paint. I like the look that it gives my projects. Then I will pull out my fine Sharpie marker, because I love to doodle on my projects. It's just part of who I am. So thank you for loving me where I'm at with these little doodles. To make the pickets for my fence, I am using these 5-gallon paint sticks that I picked up from Lowe's. I'm using my little 12-inch miter box saw with 14-inch back saw to create my little pickets. Okay, so this is the size that I'm using, or that I need for my little project. And so I just am lining it up, and then I have a pencil, and then I am just kind of marking where the you know, where the little V, or the little picket will be. And so then what I find works best for me, I have just this shelf liner to kind of help with the movement of my little saw. So I just line it up along there, and then you just place it right in here. This little miter box and saw works great, because I didn't want to ask my husband to go out to his workshop and cut them off. I wanted to do them myself. But if you have a jigsaw or a table saw or something like that, that might be a little bit faster. And I just do the same thing for the straight boards that is going to hold my fence together. Then using some 60 grit coarse sandpaper, I am just going to sand off the edges. And then I will use my tack cloth to get off any of the little dust particles. I just painted my little pickets brown. Once they were dry, I distressed them by exposing a bit of the wood using my 60 grit sandpaper. So then now I'm taking my T-ruler and I am just lining them up. I want enough space so that I can glue my welcome to my patch sign. I'm not being too precise. I just kind of eyeball it. To glue my sign on there and the little pickets to hold the fence, I'm using my rapid fuse glue as well as hot glue, and that just keeps my little fence together. As you can see, I love to use my little clips to hold my things together so that they give a good bond. For the stems of my pumpkins, on these two, I use this thicker jute. And then for the orange one, I just use some burlap from the Dollar Tree. I usually cut it in half and wrap it around the stem. That works better for me. Now I want to figure out how I'm going to put my pumpkins. So I kind of have them placed here. This large one, this Thankful and Blessed, it kind of has this little indentation right here that'll sit right in that little curve, and so I'm going to use that to my advantage. So I'm just putting my pumpkin on the stand close, like lining it up here, and then this one's going to go right here. So then I will just glue everything together. I just used some of my Rapid Fuse and some hot glue to glue these pumpkins together. And then I put my little clamps on there to hold for a few minutes so that they really set up. Once I started working with the pumpkins, I realized that I needed to glue them to the fence so everything was together. So that middle pumpkin is not flush with the front part, it's closer to the back. I added some Spanish moss to the little sign to kind of cover the holes and have a place for my little flowers to attach to. Now I added these little orange and yellow flowers. They are from the Dollar Tree. And then I also added some hydrangeas. I just pulled them off of the little bush and just glued them onto the little lower part of my little sign. Then I added some pip berries. I know I put these on my last year DIY Rustic Pumpkins, but I just love pip berries. I love the way that they look on this little project. So it's just definitely a personal preference of something that you like. Here are the ribbons I'm going to use for my bows. The majority of it is from Dollar Tree or Hobby Lobby. Here is one of the bundles I put together. I'm using some green ivy just to give it a little bit more texture and dimension, and I just like to, just add just different little textures and colors to my little projects. Now, to start my bows, I cut my ribbon about 8, 9, or 10 inches. It depends on how long I want that actual tail. So I'm just cutting those off here. I'm making the finishing edge by making a dovetail, and then I just layer them on top of each other because I like that look, the way that it gives that. This ribbon is from Hobby Lobby. I just cut that off about 9 inches and just dovetail the ends of that, and then just layer my little bow on top of each other. The window pane is also from Hobby Lobby. I got that years ago, but you can get it at different places. Then I'm going to add some wire. This green wire I did get at the, I think it was at Hobby Lobby. I'm going to look for it on Amazon because I know I'm going to get asked about that. I'm just going to twist it around the dowel, just making some little curly cues and just layering it on my little bows. So I'm just layering all of the ribbons here, just layering them on top of each other. And then I add some pip berries in there for some dimension and texture, and it just really ties the country project together. The supplies that I used is a witch hat, 4 rolls of 5-inch deco mesh, some burlap, some raffia, some chenille stems, some berries, and some ribbons, as well as a hot glue gun and hot glue sticks. So let me show you how I put all of this together. I'm using my wire cutters to cut off all of those little nubs that keep the tinsel on the witch hat. So I'm just showing you here how, just by removing the nubs, this is how it looks. First, I'm going to put some raffia at the very tip of my hat, and honestly, after I got the hat done, I didn't need to do this before. I could have tied this on afterwards. So it's a choice. You can put it on before like I did, or you can wait till the end and then just add it then. But I just tied it through the little opening there, and then I made a knot. I'm just using some 6-inch burlap. Now the burlap I got from Walmart, and I am just twisting that around the top. I'm just kind of figuring out how I can get this adhered. So I'm going to use my glue gun. I'm very careful not to glue the little plastic frame because I'm sure that it will break. So I glue the burlap to itself. And so then I'm going to pull that as tight as I can. And then I will just continue to wrap the burlap around the wreath, and around the witch hat, and then I am turning this into a scarecrow hat. So I'm going to continue to wrap the burlap around, and then every once in a while I will give a dot of hot glue so that the burlap kind of stays in place. Now, to cut my mesh, I just have my mat and a rotary cutter. I'm cutting the mesh, the length at 12 inches. So that is going to be the length of my mesh. And so I'm just cutting all of them at one time. But if you're not comfortable doing that, you can cut them one by one or just cut 2 colors at a time. Now to make my bundles, I guess I'm doing like a spiral or a tube technique. I'm not quite sure. Everyone calls it something different. So I have my 4 colors of mesh cut, and then I have some raffia. So I'm just rolling these up. I kind of let the mesh kind of, because it's on a roll, it just kind of curls itself, and I just kind of take it in my fingers and just kind of, go with it and just make a spiral. And then I put the raffia on there as well, and that is what I'm going to tie onto my scarecrow hat. So I just tie them directly to the frame with those chenille stems. At first I had made a bundle without the raffia, but then I learned that I do want the raffia in there. So it's actually an option. You can have each bundle with raffia, or you can alternate them. So, it just depends on how much raffia you want your scarecrow hat to have. I'll just continue to fill the entire bottom brim of the hat with those bundles. Now for the top of my hat, what I did is I made one of my rustic bows. I did show that in a recent video, so I will link to that up in the top as well as the bottom if you would like to check out how I make my rustic bows. I made it the same way that I showed it there in that video. So then now I'm just going to tie this around that raffia as tight as I can, because I want that raffia to kind of stick up and not be all wonky. So I'm just twisting that rustic bow around the raffia and getting it as tight as I can so that it will stick up. I'm just showing you here how I made a hanger for my scarecrow hat. I just used a piece of chenille stem. Now I'm just going to add some berries that I got from the Dollar Tree. I'm just going to be adding those sporadically in my little scarecrow hat, just hot gluing those in different places. Then to finish off my hat, I have this 1.5-inch ribbon. Now I got this burlap ribbon from Sam's a couple of years ago, and I'm just making a simple little bow, and I use my tiny attacher stapler to staple it, and then I can bunch it up and I can put my chenille stem in there. So then what I do to attach the bow to the scarecrow frame, I am just going to take that chenille stem and then I thread it through the front, and then I make sure that I don't pull it too tight because I want the bow to kind of sit on top of the mesh instead of being sunk down in there. And so then I'm just using my chenille stem. I'm just going to twist that around the frame so that the bow stays in place. To finish it off, I added a couple of patches of homespun fabric to the top of the hat, and I just love this little rustic scarecrow. I just love it so much, and I hope that you do too. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching these fall videos. Leave me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you are currently not. I love all of your sweet comments. Have a great day, and God bless.